Mr. Stiglitz?
Here.
Mr. Lewis?
Here.
Mr. Rupp?
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You know, nothing quite pulls at the heartstrings like when you hear the voices of the little children saying the Pledge of Allegiance. It's really, truly is wonderful. First item on the agenda will be approval of the transcript for the public hearing held on November 28, 2020.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is approval of the minutes of the council reorganizational meeting of January 2nd, 2023.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next, special reports, Peters Township Police Department promotion ceremony. Chief Grimes.
Thank you, Mr. Crozier.
Happy New Year, Chief.
So today we're here to promote actually 7 of our officers. We're going to do our best to abbreviate this and keep this process running. Today, the first on the agenda is Captain Jason Bernetti. Jason currently resides in Peters Township with his wife Maria and their 3 children. Captain Bernetti received his bachelor's degree in criminology from Penn State University. Following graduation from Penn State University, Captain Bernetti attended Allegheny County Police Academy. Upon graduation from the academy, Captain Bernetti accepted a position with the Peters Township Police Department in March of 2008. During his tenure here, Captain Bernetti was promoted to sergeant in 2016. During his service, he has served as a use of force and defensive tactics instructor, a field training officer, a field training officer coordinator, internal investigations, the assistant accreditation manager, and on the Shaycog Mobile Field Force as a team leader. Captain Bernetti is a graduate of the 279th session of the FBI National Academy, POSIT, POLEX, and the FBI National Academy Trilogy Leadership courses. Captain Bernetti, come forward. Captain Bernetti, congratulations. We look forward to serving with you and working with this department and continue to build the department.
I'll have my wife and 3 kids come up and try to.
We have a cameraman. Oh, they do.
Yeah, do you want to?
Great job, buddy. They can be tough. Great job. Okay. So, the commissioned officers get that pinning. It's referred to as a pinning ceremony, and it's offered to the family to come up and pin their newest rank insignia on their collar. For the next promotions or sergeants, we won't have a pinning ceremony, but I'm going to call forward 3 sergeants today. Sergeant Emery, Sergeant Rita, and Sergeant Scott. Come forward, stand here, fellas. Okay, Sergeant Emery, step forward. Sergeant Judd Emery currently resides in Peters Township with his wife Amy. Sergeant Emery has 3 sons. He's received a bachelor's degree in criminology from the Lock Haven University. Following graduation from Lock Haven University, Sergeant Emery accepted a position with the City of Pittsburgh Bureau of Police and subsequently attended the Pittsburgh City Police Academy. Upon graduation from the City Academy, Sergeant Emery was assigned to Zone 3 Patrol. In December 2005, he was promoted to detective in narcotics and then in July 2014, selected to work as a homicide detective. Sergeant Emery served 17 years with the City of Pittsburgh Bureau of Police Services before joining Peters Township in 2018. He was promoted to corporal in 2019 and officially promoted to sergeant in August 2022. His promotion ceremony was delayed to this service. During his tenure with Peters Township, Sergeant Emery has served in roles such as a field training officer. He's been extremely beneficial in coordinating all of our supplies and procurement of equipment and vehicle maintenance coordinator, and he is known as the jack of all trades in the department. Sergeant Emery. Sergeant Lou Rita, step forward. Sergeant Rita currently resides with his son LJ in North Sabine Township. Sergeant Rita received his bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Washington and Jefferson University, attended the Pennsylvania State Police Academy following his college. Sergeant Rita began his career in law enforcement with the Pennsylvania State Police and was assigned to Troop B Erie, Troop B Uniontown, Troop B Washington, the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, and during his tenure with PSP, he held the positions of patrol trooper, patrol unit supervisor, criminal investigation unit supervisor, Western Interdiction unit supervisor, and drug law enforcement in the drug law enforcement division, which served 25 counties. Sergeant Rita was promoted to corporal in 2022 and now promoted to sergeant. Sergeant Rita. Sergeant Spencer Scott. Sergeant Spencer Scott currently resides with his wife Sarah in Peters Township. They're awaiting their first child. Sarah. Sergeant Scott received his bachelor's degree in sociology and psychology from Ohio University. Following graduation from Ohio University, Sergeant Scott accepted a position with the City of Pittsburgh Bureau of Police and subsequently attended their police academy. Upon graduation from the City Academy, Sergeant Scott was assigned to Zone 2, where he served for 4 years. Sergeant Scott joined the Peters Township Police in 2018 and was promoted to corporal in 2022. During his tenure with the Peters Township Police Department, he has served in roles as a field training officer, a firearms instructor, and a SWAT team operator with the Shaycog Critical Incident Response Team. Sergeant Scott. Okay, you guys can go back and sit down. I'm going to call up the corporals. Corporal Wolfart, Corporal Klein, and Corporal Del Rey. I'm going to go out on a limb here and Paul say this is unprecedented. 7 promotions.
That would be correct.
Corporal Wolfart, step forward. Corporal Wolfart currently resides with his wife Lindsay in Whitehall, PA. He received his bachelor's degree in criminology from Cal U. Following graduation from California, he accepted a position with the City of Pittsburgh Bureau of Police and subsequently attended the Pittsburgh City Police Academy. Upon graduation, he was assigned to Zones 3, 6, and 2. Wolfart served 2 years with the City Police Department. He joined the Peters Township Police in 2018, and during his tenure, he served in roles as a field training officer. He is our traffic liaison coordinator, and he's also a mobile field force officer on the Shaycog Quick Response Team for Mobile Field Force. Corporal Wolfart. Del Rey. Corporal Del Rey currently resides in Peters Township with his wife Olivia and their 2 sons. Corporal Del Rey received his bachelor's degree in criminology from Cal U. Following graduation, he subsequently attended the Allegheny County Police Academy. Upon graduation from the Allegheny County Academy, he accepted a position in 2013 with the University of Pittsburgh Police Department. Corporal Del Rey served 6 years with the University of Pitt Police Department before joining Peters Township in 2019. During his tenure here, he has served in roles as defensive tactics instructor, bicycle patrol officer, and a field training officer. Corporal Del Rey. Last but not least, step forward. Corporal Austin Klein currently resides with his wife Shaylee in Peters Township. Corporal Klein received his bachelor's degree in criminal justice of administration from Waynesburg. Following graduation, he accepted a position with the Arlington County Police Department in Arlington, Virginia, and subsequently attended Arlington County Police Academy. Upon graduation from the academy, he was assigned to Uniform Patrol. He served 2 years there before coming to join the Peters Township Police Department in 2021. During his tenure here, Corporal Klein has served as a field training officer, a police motors officer, a nuisance wildlife control operator, and a township archery program coordinator. Corporal Klein. As I said, this is, it's unprecedented, so many, but I think if you listened there, what you heard was a lot of guys who have a lot of experience in other places before we got them. We are fortunate to have each and every one of them and the skill sets that they bring, that they've learned in other places, and their perspective that they bring in law enforcement. It's unique to a municipal police department of our size to have the kind of perspective that we have. And each of these officers have made this department better and this community safer, and I personally want to thank them. So thank you for your time and attention to this. I hope you all have a great evening.
I understand there's some people in the hallway who are waiting to get in, so we'll wait for the audience to file out before we continue. All right, we'll move on to audience comments. This is the part of the meeting where any member of the audience can speak for up to 5 minutes on a non-agenda item. Seeing some of the people in the audience, I presume we're going to be talking about the tower on Druid Drive, so I would ask anyone who wants to talk about anything other than the tower on Druid Drive, come forth now. Okay. Seeing as apparently no one wants to speak about anything other than the tower on Druid Drive, Mr. Brown, you want to kick us off?
I was hoping other people were going to talk on certain subjects, so I would get, my 5 minutes not wasted. I'll leave it on.
If you could sign in with your name and your address.
Yep, will do.
Let you do it.
Name is William, also known as Bill Mers. I am at 119 Druid. I just have a few questions for folks. Let me start off with the first tower that went up as far as the cell tower is concerned. Not the utility tower itself, but the one on the right. That would be the AT&T tower. The AT&T tower went up, I don't know, about 8-10 years ago, something like that.
About 16.
How many?
About 16.
Oh gosh, I lost track of time then. But anyway, their equipment was rather invisible to me. I mean, this is the first thing I see every day when I leave my house. Go to the mailbox, drive up the driveway. If I had $1 for every one of those, I'd probably be able to retire. But anyway, when they put that in, they use the cables, but they use them like you would set out your silverware. All nice, gray cable on the back side of the tower, not visible from the street. This new tower on the left goes in, and lo and behold, there's about 10 or 12 cables coming out of the AT&T box, running across the tower from what would be here, right to left, up one of the legs of the tower, as you can see there, back across into the AT&T antenna. My question is why? AT&T already had a nice clean path from their equipment, from their controls on the bottom, up to the antenna. This new one goes in, they use these black cables, they bundle them all together, they stick out like a sore thumb. As I say, it's the first thing I've seen, it's not really pleasant to look at. But they run it all the way across through the tower. And my question is why? If there's any representatives here from Verizon or AT&T or the utility, why? It's a question for you. Now, That's kind of all I wanted to say about that, per se. But there is something else that I do want to add to the installation of that equipment. There was a great big crane that came in that they parked right in front of my house. Now, a question for council, Mr. Lauer, has anybody gone up there and documented the damage done to the street? And are these people that put the equipment in, whether it's AT&T, Verizon, or the contractor, they going to pay to fix that, or are we as taxpayers going to pay to fix that? Another question I had. We talk about damages. You're probably tired of hearing this because we brought it up before, but cell towers reduce your property values by about 25%. Is Verizon and AT&T going to subsidize your payments to the neighborhood for the decrease in value? And there's been a lot of questions about cell towers and reception. Well, my question, or my, not question, but comment for those people complaining about cell tower with poor reception, get a landline. They work great. I got one. And they're a hell of a lot cheaper. You can continue paying $1,000 for those telephones, or you can pay $50 or less for a landline. And if that's not good enough for you, here's something else you can do. You want better reception? Petition AT&T and Verizon. Come over and put a tower in your neighborhood. You'll love looking at it every day, just like I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Thank you.
Paul, is there any damage up there on the road?
We were up there today, and where I see damage is actually on the other side of the street. I didn't notice damage on the side of the street where that was located, but I can go back up and take a look.
Who would be responsible for that? The operator?
We would come back to the contractor to
We have a
do the
road
repair.
bond through
Yeah.
the street opening permit
I
process.
just
So
wanted to
it's
make sure
bonded,
that we
yeah.
can address issues that we can address. So I think you should send somebody up there to take pictures or whatever. So
You want to see what it looks like?
I don't care what it looks like.
Okay.
I'm going to have somebody from the
that's what it looks
township go up and document it.
This is what in fact, we saw this today.
That's where they had those heavy-duty crane with the feet from.
We saw that today.
And this side, which is the side that I'm
Right.
working
Okay.
is worse than the other side. The other side down there is damaged.
Yeah. I noticed it from the
I know
fire
you've
truck.
talked with AT&T and Diamond and First Energy. Did they give you a reason why this cabling is how it is?
There was, and there's people here who can answer that question directly, but my understanding is that West Penn Power concern was with the structural stability of the tower. And so therefore, they had a structural analysis done, which recommended this as a solution.
That's incorrect in my conversations with Verizon. Is anybody here from Verizon?
Mr. Brown, if you're going to speak, you got to come up, okay?
Well, I'm going to wait for Mr. Ravishon, but I would like to address inconsistencies on what's said, when it's said.
But to do that, Mr. Brown, you do need to come up to the microphone.
Is that going to kill my 5 minutes, Mr. Lowell?
No, I don't think it should.
The concern is that we actually are able to type the minutes, so whoever needs to speak.
Well, I think the proper way to do this is, we were told Verizon, Diamond, and First Energy were going to send representatives. If any of those folks are here, they can stand up and introduce themselves.
Oh my gosh.
That they are.
No,
Yeah.
that's it. You want to call us up, Paul,
What?
right at the end for an answer?
Well, I think what might be more useful is to get all the questions, and then they can answer the questions.
I'd like to know who I'm addressing questions to.
You're
I know
addressing
Mr.
questions
Howard
to
is.
council.
I know who Mr. Arcuri is.
No, you're addressing council. That's whose meeting this is. But
So why don't we set an agenda, why can't we set an agenda item with all these varying individuals here and get it on the agenda so people can talk? Anthony Brown, 123 Druid Drive. Addressing, I guess, Mr. Steele, can you ask that gentleman who he is and who he represents?
Yeah, I think you would need to come up to the microphone. You guys are planning to speak, I take it?
Yeah, First Energy, John Greenwood, come at the end. That's easy, don't have to put on the record, but I'll listen to it, and I believe there's Diamond.
Well, before we go any further on this, Mr. Lauer, should we just put this on the agenda for the next meeting?
Please. I
think
That
it'd
way
be
everyone will have notice of it and everybody can show up. Otherwise, we can't act tonight anyway because it's not an agenda item.
Well, I'm not sure what it is there is to act on, but it's your meeting, you can do what you want, but you do have everyone here.
Well, everyone's
And
got-
I do know that in the neighborhood, people were notified because there was something that was distributed to people's houses by one of the
To
residents.
4 houses, yes, sir.
Yeah, so,
So
but
we
that's
have
up
a
to you.
miss.
It's your meeting.
The only thing I would add to the board
I
is,
don't prefer to have it an agenda item.
well, with the
My
record,
understanding was that our actions or our ability to control any of that project is non-existent under state law. Is that correct?
it's preempted, yes.
It's preempted. So the real people that need to be involved here would be state legislators, senators, and state reps. But I think that they have raised some valid concerns, and I think that going forward, there are things that we should probably try to get, like making things look a little bit better. But quite frankly, given the state of the township, I really don't envision something like this probably popping up for a while, if at all, in the foreseeable future.
I don't think we necessarily are going to look to enforce something through zoning regulations or
Well, I don't
whatnot,
think
so
we
much as
can.
we're going to attempt to work with First Energy and Verizon, AT&T, to see if we can come up with some way of making this less of an eyesore. I don't think that's been done to this point. I think the township dropped the ball on that, and I think we need to correct the situation as much as to the extent that we can do so through a partnership, I would hope, with this three.
Bang. So we have a Mr. Green from Verizon here. Is there anybody else in the room representing any other entities?
Can you guys identify yourself?
Yeah.
Just, please, so we can move on. And if you could come up to the
Why is
microphone.
that such an issue with the town, Paul?
No, I'm just asking. You asked.
People are going to
Yes,
come and
that's-
have direct
And
conversation.
I'm agreeing with you, Mr. Brown. I'm saying
But you got
they
to
should identify him.
I don't understand it.
Tony.
Yes.
My tone isn't directed towards you, it's directed towards the representatives here. If you could come up and tell us who you are and who you represent, that would be good for council so they understand.
Good evening. Melissa Cook, Vice President, Utility Development with Diamond Communications.
Is that Melissa Cook?
Yes.
And Ms. Cook, would you sign in just for our minutes so we do a record who's here?
Excuse me?
Good evening, Scott Von Ryan, Diamond Communications.
No.
And Melissa was also with Diamond?
Can you guys explain to council how Diamond interfaces with?
Yeah, let's get everybody checked in here, and then as questions come up, we'll know who we're speaking to, or answering.
Is this one too?
Yes, sir.
I think we just have 2 more people to identify themselves for our minutes.
Sure. And again, it's John Greenwood, John, and I am the external affairs consultant for First Energy that covers your territory.
And sir, on the other podium, you may have introduced yourself. I didn't catch.
I did not.
Oh,
My name
sorry.
is Bill Bittner. I'm with Verizon Wireless. I'm a real estate specialist.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
All right, so to make this go a little more efficiently, I would ask that you 4 just stay in the front here. There's a nice row of 4 seats there. You can sit down, so you don't have to stand. This isn't an inquisition or anything like that, so you guys can sit in front. Mr. Brown, ask your questions.
Mr. Greenwood, I've been dealing with Alan Shem, who now has kicked the ball to Mr. Dwayne Edwards at
Okay, so-
Verizon Corporate.
No.
Or, I'm sorry, First Energy Corporate.
Sure. So Alan Shimp is a supervisor of transmission design. Dwayne Edwards is our manager of
Okay.
transmission design.
And he's taking over from Mr. Shem, he's ordered me.
No, Mr. Shimp works for Dwayne. Mr. Shemp is moving on to a project manager supervisor role still in transmission.
So Mr. Edwards has said everything needs to flow through him. He and Alan have said that Peters Township has not sent them up variant drawings of remediation efforts. They are happy to look at that. I want to understand the process.
So understanding the process, we wouldn't expect Peters Township to submit that. These projects are submitted from Diamond. The process is, again, in co-location, we have ours. We are the design authority, maintenance authority on the transmission tower. So anything that occurs on that, feeding electric codes, those rules, we are the approval authority. Again, these things, to the township's record here, is not necessarily under their governance, the co-location. I'm sure your solicitor can enumerate on this, but I'm not.
Right, we're hearing commentary that we cannot attach cabling because of structural. Well, there can be 8,000 different configurations of cabling. It will be based on what is
First
submitted.
Energy has approved that configuration,
I know they have.
and that is a configuration of which they can work to.
But First Energy didn't say to Verizon, this is the only way to get lines.
We are a review and approval authority. We do not dictate their work.
I would like to be
Review
able to
and
finish my sentence before you
Sure.
cut me off, because we're saying the same thing. Used to be a wire, a coaxial wire that ran up here to AT&T. I'm trying to understand, and I would assume that Verizon submitted potential ways of putting in this install. My understanding is, it's hard to tell from this drawing, we had to run a separate pole. And the township thought that Verizon was going to come in and create one of these on the First Energy tower. First Energy ran their structural analysis and said that's not feasible. So Verizon must have came back, and I'm sorry, who's here from Verizon? Mr. Greenwood.
that would be Mr.
Mr. Bittner came back, and Verizon submitted a separate pole with a couple brackets attached to your tower. By the way, does First Energy get remuneration from this, from any of the cell arrays?
Compensation for this, for occupancy on the tower, there is, yes.
Okay. So this gets submitted, and First Energy studies it and says that structurally works for us. But, right? And then it gets sent to Diamond. This is what you're going to install. So one of my next questions is,
Mr. Brown, you have these four people here, and you're making good points, but you're giving council your summation of what happened. Why don't you ask them what happened and what they did so you know for certain? I think you have an understanding of what happened.
I got to have my groundwork, sir.
Well, no, you're doing a great job.
not a trial.
So belittling it, but I want you to, instead of moving on, you went over that whole line without a question. And you have the people here that can confirm whether you're right or wrong.
I'm sorry, what do you want me to ask?
Ask them what you described, whether they agree that's what happened. I mean, because other than that, we're going to have to go back over the same line of
permission
questioning.
That if I say anything that's incorrect, please correct the record. Have I said anything incorrect so far?
Yes.
Okay. Please let's have intercourse here, if we understand the word. Don't let me just bloviate and do something wrong.
So Verizon really doesn't design what you see there. It is really apologetic forward with suggestions from the group, which includes First Energy, Diamond, and to a lesser extent Verizon. Verizon simply provides an application to Diamond. We vet that application. We submit it to First Energy for approval. Then we go through the structural process. If the structure,
And you're representing Verizon, sir? I'm sorry. Diamond. Okay.
Diamond Communications is the asset manager for First Energy Structures. So, First Energy's engineer, they determine what is feasible and
Right.
acceptable.
Based on what is sent to them. study this?
No, no.
No. First Energy actually participates in the design of this.
Their consulting engineer,
Oh, it's like a person's name.
Yeah.
It's actually an entity, it's an organization.
Okay.
It's an engineering.
very, very well-established engineering firm out of Akron. They run structural analyses and determine what can and cannot be done. So what you saw, what happened, you were correct. AT&T's coax did run up the back leg of the tower. When Verizon came along, it was determined that they could not keep the coax on the structure itself. So when they installed that separate structure,
Well, let's step back. Because we're past where I want to go. You know what? I'm accepting this. I accepted this. Verizon's got a ton more attorneys than we have. That single pole tower isn't a single pole tower because somebody ran a couple rods over to the First Energy. All right, I get it. So I'm looking at this.
Well,
Paul, do you have the picture of
that's
what
not
it
for us
looked
to
like
decide.
before this? Remember the
I
07?
do not have, that's the only picture I have of the tower.
Oh, I submitted a bunch of pictures to be projected. Sorry. Is there an audiovisual person here that might have got the records?
They didn't come to me,
Okay.
Mr. Brown.
I accept that. This is a Verizon install, from what I understand. And I got the packet finally.
yes, Verizon was the latest applicant on the street, that's correct.
So why, these two companies hate each other, Verizon and AT&T. They can't possibly operate. We as a township, you know, maybe we can create our own 30 panel and hide inside a clock tower to sell to y'all and put it where we want it. We haven't done that yet. We need to set up the process. These companies hate each other. I got a Verizon pole, and this is facing me. We have a coaxial cable that nobody saw go to AT&T. Then lo and behold, when the tower's going up, we didn't even look at the permit. We just stamped it. We stopped work. Did you know we stopped work on this?
I was aware that that happened, yes.
Because we didn't even know you guys were putting the pole up.
Nobody gave notice.
Well,
Well, no, I'm not talking about the residents. I'm talking about the township. We didn't even know. We stopped work. Attorneys talked, pole went up, nothing I can do about it. But
You
AT&T
can
and
certainly
Verizon hate
ask.
each other.
You can certainly ask why that happened. You can certainly ask why that happened.
Of whom and what
Of the
am I
township.
asking?
The township made that determination via their solicitor, and you can speak up and
No, Paul's the one that wrote the letter, and he stopped the project because we thought
It was out of scope.
this was gonna be this. We didn't even know there was a pole. Was it on paperwork? It was on paperwork. We didn't look at it because our stance at Peters Township is whatever anybody wants to do on these towers, there ain't nothing we can do about it. I know the life is a little bit better than that. But anyway, Verizon and AT&T hate each other. How in the hell this installation occurs? Now all of a sudden, I got 12 fire hose, AT&T cables on a Verizon install, wrapping up out of this expanded box, by the way, that's unprotected, running over, across, up the hated Verizon tower, back across, and up to AT&T. How is AT&T cabling approved as part of a Verizon install?
it's very simple, because AT&T or Verizon couldn't go on the structure if that didn't occur.
Verizon could not go on the First Energy structure unless AT&T cables were rerouted and upgraded. Who makes that determination?
Well, J Ford.
It's out of scope. They weren't-
It's out of scope.
How do you think?
Well, I'll read from the scope of work from the township. Scope of work for applicant Verizon Wireless. Permitted to uninstall and reinstall the existing AT&T transmission lines.
That's it.
Nothing in here says put in 12 fire hoses. Now I have a drawing, but I also have the written scope. So we have a drawing. It's a beautiful drawing. Do you have that picture full?
Yeah, I mean, the cabling was shown on the drawing.
You don't have to advocate for that.
I'm not advocating, I'm just making a simple statement about what's on the drawing.
Every single step of the way.
No, I do not advocate for them. In fact, as
This
you well...
this is my opinion, all right?
Okay.
You've advocated for them every step of the way. The drawing will show a very nice mechanical drawing of one little line running perfectly buried. You ever seen the Michael Douglas movie where he points at the verter up on the billboard and then he points at what's on your table? That don't equal that. Do you have any pictures? Because what is on the drawing doesn't look like that. The verbiage doesn't match that.
I have a question for First Energy Diamond. Is there any other structural sound way to run these cables, or is this the only?
This is the only way and beyond.
And is there anything you guys can do to make it look more attractive than it does?
I will answer
I
that
mean,
one. So
anything you do is going to make it look more
Okay.
attractive than it does now. I mean,
I'm going to address the council. So for the
Could you
council,
please stand up so we make sure we
Sure.
hear this?
So John Greenwood, just to make sure you know it is, and First Energy. So in discussion from Diamond and the others, they brought this forward as an aesthetic. They put forward ideas, many of which we couldn't do. The one that was raised that we evaluated and gave conditional approval for is a painting of a cable. So that was the option that was put forward and approved to you guys then.
Not acceptable.
you can't put a sock up around it or anything like that?
That has not been approved.
I'll tell you what's
Well,
acceptable.
whether it's been approved or not, it's not what I asked you. I asked you whether it could be done.
A sock or
Yeah,
Some type of encasement.
right.
an encasement, we talked about shrouding, that cannot be.
No, that's not acceptable to us either. I'll tell you what's acceptable. A secured end case, I don't care if it's 4 lines, 6 lines, you're not approved to do what you did. Structurally sound that has to get approved by First Energy, riding up, and why did you put it in the front facing all the homes, by the way, on the Verizon pole? Not only was this drawn poorly, all right, and not notated correctly, it's put in such a way that is the most demeaning to all of us. Find a way to do this. My remediation effort would be, you didn't case this properly, secure it properly, so First Energy will approve it, or take them out. And go back to the original written scope of work, which was uninstall and reinstall existing AT&T coaxial.
Council, do you have any other questions?
Is there a reason the wires were put on the front of the pole as opposed to the back?
You can speak with better authority.
Not according to the proof.
So is there any reason they couldn't be moved at this point?
We have not investigated that. I have to look at the structural closer and see if it's specified. I'm sure they put it on this side of the tower for a reason, based on the structural capabilities. We could certainly ask Quality Ford if that's a viable solution to reroute them to the other side of the tower.
Or to the back of that
The
pole?
back side of the tower, the back side of it.
And that's nice, Mr. Kozer. You got the power. You have the leverage now.
Tony,
That
I'd
will
like to say
not
something.
make, you have to introduce yourself. We will not be happy with that. You got the power by the written word, Frank, in the scope of work. They could say there's a competing approval on the drawing. They don't have 100% approval. We can make it hard. We can make it harder. Work with us and find a way to run a clean, straight, vertical line and get rid of this
Can I
mess.
just make one quick point?
Absolutely. This is your meeting too.
And I mean this with all due respect. We learned about this issue a week and a half ago. It takes a year and a half to design, permit, vet, and install.
Oh, I think you went further than that. I know the leaseholder that you signed the agreement with.
So my point is, as soon as we heard, We started getting meetings together. We started looking for solutions. We're here tonight doing the best we can for you. We're listening.
So 4 of y'all showed up and said, let's throw some paint on the cable.
I can't.
Are you kidding me?
In a week?
That's what we were asked to do.
You were asked to do that by who, sir?
We were asked.
We attempted to look at.
I'm sorry, I was asking a question.
Well, I was going to answer your question for you.
And I know, it's your solution. to
Well,
throw
it is-
paint on a polymer cable. I am so ecstatic with that answer. Does anybody feel that that's a sufficient answer? Let's throw paint on here on a polymer cable. Who's going to repaint that every year, and what kind of difference does it make? That's ludicrous.
I think that you should let the individual from Verizon and Paul respond to that question. Go ahead.
So one of the things that has been expressed by the people in the neighborhood is the fact that you now have these vertical cables. And the thing about those, the contrast with those black cables at their location is such that it creates this aesthetic problem. And so the question was, is there anything that can be done to mitigate that? So we asked the question about the possibility of shrouding them and containing them. We also asked the question of whether or not you could paint them so that in fact they were closer to the color of the tower than they are the color of that sticks out. That was the discussion, and the attempt is to try to address the concern. Now, I realize Mr. Brown doesn't accept that as a reasonable solution, and maybe it's not one that council wants to pursue, but the attempt is to identify what could be done to mitigate the problem.
Do we have any design firms we work with?
But just let me say, from listening to this gentleman here, it appears to me that the point you were trying to make was to get that project from ground zero to completion took 1.5 years, right?
Yes.
And this issue, you've had 1.5 weeks, correct? And so I would assume that in discussions with Mr. Lauer, that in that short window, that was a viable solution. And I'm assuming that there are other viable solutions, but that was a viable solution just to paint them. Just to address that issue.
Right. Whether, yes.
And whether council is interested in pursuing that, or the neighbors
we're
interested in
sitting here trying to get to help these people, right? And it just seems that they're getting beat up for doing their jobs.
Okay. And where did we drop the ball then? Because we didn't know any of this as a township until I called in and said, you know what's going up to date? Stop work. They're not approved to put a tower in. Bang, bang, you got to go up and identify yourself.
Well, I don't think that's exactly what happened.
I can tell you this.
But it is what it is. And you're sitting here, telling them that Verizon and AT&T don't get along. That's not trying to, identify solutions. They're not going to identify any other solutions other than what they made because they've only had 1.5 weeks.
That's my issue. If we don't address this now, we're going to throw paint on it and everything's going to be okay.
There's going to be 3 or 4 more times that.
AT&T lines on a Verizon tower after they don't get along. How does this happen?
First of all,
it's not an AT&T tower, and it's not a Verizon tower.
This is AT&T.
It's a First Energy tower, correct?
You guys own
It is a First Energy tower.
okay, Tony, I have my few minutes.
You got to sign.
Diane DeChickas, I'm on Druid Drive. First of all, the crews we talked to there can't understand why you did what you did. It's a mess. And as far as aesthetics, yeah, it's bad, but what's worse is you have wires everywhere sticking up. There's kids in the neighborhood. And when you stand there and look across the street over to the other tower, I think it's Simmons Farm, it's higher, and nobody thought to do anything with that.
So
and as far as this study year and a half, putting this together, none of the residents were ever informed. And one of the crew at the working there, even he was shocked when we're like, what's going on? You mean you weren't told? Nobody said anything to you? Nothing. We heard nothing. And you guys have power. I've been around a lot of magistrates and you know, growing up in different states and that. I've lived in different states. You have a scope of work over there you can work with. And they're supposed to come to you and have some kind of cooperation. One of the neighbors that was very upset, he's not able to be here tonight. He worked for FedEx 30 years, and his job was to fly across the country to different areas where FedEx wanted to do work and work with the township and municipalities. And, you know, you don't just run in and throw that in the middle of a neighborhood. And without even consulting a single person that lives there. And I heard so many excuses for what these people are doing, these corporations are doing, from people that I thought were the best interests of Peters. And it's like you kept giving me excuses of why they're doing. How about sticking up for your constituency? You have a lot of people on that hill that couldn't even be here tonight because they have families and illnesses and this and that. And nobody even stops to, you know, talk to them. It's a mess up there. It's a mess. And I don't think any of you would love to have that in your backyard. It's not even the backyard, it's on the side. And there's kids all around it.
What she's talking about is you have your own, you have a wide open.
There's a field that you can look at with one of those towers.
Do you not have that picture, Paul?
And it's completely empty. It's higher than that one. And there's nothing around the grass, but we got to stick it in the middle of the neighborhood. We didn't mind having a tower. We realized the electricity, all that, but when you look at the scope of work, guys didn't follow it, and you didn't hold their feet to the fire.
And you can right now.
You can't rubber stamp this stuff and let these people come in and run us all over.
So let's find a design firm that can design and submit something to First Energy that will properly attach X amount of cables, encase it properly, structurally and sound, and run this thing vertical and get rid of this nonsense. What she's also talking about is the electrical supply and all the things that were supposed to be fenced off. I don't know if you guys drove the site.
If I can, they partially fenced that in. They are to complete that work. There's a survey issue that they're working out.
Paul, that's been an open site since October.
And
somebody should be liable.
It's not just once or twice, excuse me, I'm sorry, but there's 4 or 5 times just in 6 months, the crews up there and the equipment that they bring in and out, and they dug under the road, through the road, to get to the electrical box that's right between our yards, and now you got it exposed. I mean, it's ridiculous what's going on there. You should hear the crews working up there. They think it's nuts what's going on. It's a mess. And they figure, well, we'll have the same job for years to come because we'll be fixing it. We'll be back and forth for years to come.
Can I ask you something? Do you guys have a procedure where you kind of usually interact with townships, municipalities, and there may be a give and take? It isn't just like, this is the way we drew it, and you have to accept it this way. Isn't there some dialogue in a lot of cases?
Traditionally, and in most cases, there's an ordinance. We follow the ordinance. We submit our plans. It goes to the board. They review it. We have a hearing if need be. If there's an issue with some of the neighbors are usually, I don't know in Peters what the notification process is, but there's usually a notification process for the public hearing.
Can I verify what you're saying right there for a second? Was any of this submitted to you guys over the last 2 years before we started appearing?
Yeah.
Did you guys approve this?
No, it doesn't come to us.
Okay, it doesn't come to them, and we received no notification.
16 years ago.
That's what it looked like 16 years ago. I don't know where the people are.
So, Bill,
does this look like that?
Yeah.
No,
It wasn't
it's not
supposed
even
to be
close.
that. It's not, it's out of scope.
Bill, can you continue? You were letting us.
The process, which isn't the case in Peters. Please continue.
Usually that's the case.
Yes, sir.
Where you go through zoning, and then once you get your zoning approval, then you file for a building permit. Now, I wasn't involved in that, in the permit process, so I'm not sure exactly how It went through all, I don't know, did we come in for conditional use? Did we come in for just a building permit?
So in the state of Pennsylvania, this is the regulation on co-locations. This is not, if you were coming in with a standalone tower, you would have gone through that process. But we don't permit standalone towers except in the industrial zone.
Okay.
So the only way that you can do a tower in Peters Township is by co-location. And this is the law as it pertains to co-location. So what, and what it says is what it says there, that you may not require any additional requirements of the application for co-location. And that includes regulating co-location, replacement, modification of antennas, accessory equipment, wireless. So here, as it would be in any municipality in the state of Pennsylvania, it's an administrative approval because we don't have the authority under Pennsylvania state law because they've amended the municipality's planning code to preempt municipalities from doing that. But you are correct. If it was a standalone tower, you would have gone through all of that.
So if we as citizens would have been alerted, if we would have known and would have had drawings available, then we would have had dialogue with y'all. Or they have these new devices called phones, and they could have got picked up and said, you know what? We read this plan, we reviewed the plan. Do you think you could do this? Do you think you could make a simple vertical run that First Energy will approve? Not the original one that got turned down because of structural. What else can we do so it doesn't look like this? By the way, if any of y'all were on the street, the highest point in Peters Township, next tower over, farmland.
Middle of the field.
Not on my street, which already has a tower and a solar array. I don't want to see tower 3, 4, 5, and 6 next time I wake up. All right? Find a way that ain't paint to mitigate this nonsense. And that's the best picture I've seen.
All right,
the ones I submitted were much.
No, that's your picture.
Anyway, can I?
I was just going to say.
No, and I submitted about 12 more, but I've seen none of them.
For where it goes with First Energy, again, we respond from what we have to do in our structural evaluations and several other considerations of what can and cannot be approved on that would be submitted to us. And as it stands today, the only thing that has been submitted to us that we provided guidance is paint. And I believe you're going to come back and ask about maybe routing on the back. To speak to them, these folks here drove 8-9 hours this morning to come here and to have this conversation, to have this. I live locally, so it's easy. We will listen to them. We have to follow our guidance, our rules, same as the township, following the guidance and rules of the state, and that's how we proceed with this. I can say it wholeheartedly, they could walk away as it stands right now, as I understand it.
Even though we have a scope of work that said you were outside your scope of work.
And I can't speak.
We don't want to have a content, right?
John, do you believe
that
looking
would
at the
be a good
document?
question for Paul. I just got this packet
Tony,
at the last meeting.
excuse me. Do you believe there's any outside of scope work being done here when you reviewed documents?
When Ed looked at the documents and we looked at it early on, the only thing that we initially questioned whether that standalone tower was outside of the scope, not so much of the scope, but was outside of the preemption of the statute, that we could say that that doesn't count as co-location. So that's why we put a stop order on you to say, wait a minute, does this constitute co-location? Because we tried as a municipality to get in and to weigh in on all these issues. When we took it outside, we have special counsel that deals with this, and it's a close call. I mean, structurally, we'd rather not fall over, and that's what they said they needed, and they tied it together, and the opinion that came back was this falls within the co-location statute. So now, Tom, to your question as to looking at the drawings, I've not looked at the drawings to say that, because I haven't seen any as-builts, Mark, I don't know if anyone's gone up there.
I can show it to you
Whether they've run wires contrary to what the drawings say.
Absolutely.
I don't know, because I can't read them that way. I don't know if Ed or Mark have even looked at it, because typically it's not part of our review to look and see which way those are running, because we're preempted.
I guess this is the first time you're seeing some of this stuff. Could you read that and tell me if we're within our scope of work, sir?
again, I can't read as an engineer, sir, the drawings themselves. So looking at the terminology.
It's not a
here-
drawing, that's
No,
verbiage.
but I have to look at the verbiage and then go back against it with the drawing.
The verbiage, Ed's spoken to me on this. You guys have competing interests. You guys have one drawing and you have verbal.
Based on this drawing,
Yes, sir.
it's not outside the scope.
Look at this beautiful drawing. Look at that line. Look at that line.
So, Mr. Brosco, what Ed said is that it's not outside the scope based on.
Mr. Brown, now I don't want to cut you off, but we've been on this for about 45 minutes. These people are here, they're willing, it sounds like they're willing to at least explore what...
So here's what I'd like my council to do. My council. Find out who in this room, or any room, or whoever we employ, can get something that First Energy will approve, that ain't paint, that ain't a sock, and run a clean vertical line up here and attach it securely. That's what I'm tasking you with. You don't want this in your front yard. You don't want the next one in your front yard.
Well, like you said, I can see it from my front door. It's not right across the street from me. I don't, I'm not,
Well, I know where
I
you
don't,
live.
I know.
You don't have my view.
You're right, I don't. You're right, I
You don't
don't.
have my radiation.
Oh, my God. And you know what? I'm begging the council here, you tell the police that when they're with all their equipment on that little road at the top in the middle of the neighborhood filled with kids and toddlers running around, start ticketing. You start giving tickets out. We can make it hard or we can make it harder. But if you guys aren't willing to work with us, that's what we got to do.
I think they've made it clear they are willing to.
I
remember that.
drove all the way from New
No,
Jersey.
we're talking about painting a sock.
But listen, Tony,
Okay, do you
listen.
understand our frustration? This is
These people had no obligation, I'm not defending them, but they had no obligation to come here tonight. They could have simply said...
You're letting them leave here thinking paint and a sock is the answer.
I haven't heard that from
And you're gonna
anybody.
get this, you're gonna get this feeling from y'all, then it's over. Game's over.
I don't think
You got the power.
I don't think anybody in this council tonight said that painting the wires is acceptable.
That's not finished.
No, I think there's a
No, but you're talking
That
about
was what they
freaking
came up
painting
with a week and a half, within a week and a half. And then,
All right, let me ask you.
All right, let's pull this all back to maybe one at a time, so.
No, I think that.
If we're not done.
I think we should hear from some other people and move on. I mean, this is taking way too much time, and we have a long agenda here.
It's unaddressed.
I think we all agree the paint is not the solution
Yes,
we're looking
no
for.
That's a freaking.
They're here, they're willing to work with the township to find something other than the paint. Is that correct? You guys are willing to explore this working with our staff? I'm assuming you guys work with other townships.
Absolutely.
Right?
Again, we were here because we work with townships. And again, I'm talking the First Energy aspect of this. We will review it. It goes into the considerations of the structure. It goes into considerations of maintenance and the reliability of our system, front and foremost.
In the C1 Musk world of technology, do you think there's any way of any potentiality that First Energy will approve some design that is vertical and attached structurally that fits your parameters?
Again, you talked to Alan, who's our actual engineer on that, and I believe he's sent you an email and said.
And Alan said, I can only review what gets sent to me. I don't design.
Within his approval, again, that was discussed and that was completely, we cannot do it, correct? Through our design authority.
You cannot do the one that was proposed to you. That wasn't my question. My question was, can you think of any potential answer that is a vertical run and gets rid of that?
I don't want to sound pedantic to you. I am not a structural engineer,
know
so I'm not going to.
Okay.
Right.
Look, we're not going to solve this tonight.
No, not going to do that.
We have the contact, Paul, we have the contact information for these four wonderful people who came here tonight to.
And please remove the Sherwin-Williams as a potential answer, please.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead now.
That's okay. I'll be very quick.
Anthony.
I understand.
Thank you.
So I live
Those
at
are my
121
drawings.
Druid, and there's wires coming out of my yard. There's a big, large box with a bunch of wires coming out of my yard, so I live right across the street from this. Yes, and then there's a bunch of red wires. Now, I have children that live in the neighborhood here, and we were just wondering what we were going to do about that.
I will ask you. the wires that are coming out. Like, I didn't look at that specifically today. I saw it was marked for underground.
Yeah, I saw that there was some sort of above ground conduit, flexible conduit that was there. I don't know if it's whose it is, if it's fiber, if it's power.
Okay, so you had a year and a half to discuss this, but you don't know what these wires are, is that what you're saying? So I have wires in my yard that none of you don't know. Right this second, you don't know what they are.
We don't build sites, we're not there to install anything. We have general contractors who were there, he was there today. I don't know if that was an issue. I would definitely address it today. when we
Okay,
work
so
there.
wires coming out of the ground that are associated with this project, you don't know. Okay, I read like that.
What was your name?
That was
I didn't
my
catch your name.
ending right
What's your name
there.
again, ma'am?
My name's Erin Rebish, R-E-B-I-S-H. Yeah.
Mr. Brown does.
No, he does.
Oh, he does, he's my next door neighbor.
No, we'll make sure we get
Paul, when you go back up here to look at the road, would you take a look at that? Because if something needs to be
Yeah, I was going to say, typically, what we do is back to pull.
Obviously, this isn't gonna get rectified this evening. I just wanted you to know
But
that.
I will have an answer for you tomorrow. Thank you. I have an answer tomorrow.
It's most likely fiber.
Could you please email
Most likely isn't really cutting
We are
it.
just hearing of this right now. I was not aware of this situation. Tomorrow morning, before we leave, we will go out to the site, we will take pictures, we'll have phone conversations.
Yes.
And we'll find out what it is.
You also
That's the
have
best I
like
can do.
25 red flags in your yard that we have no clue.
Yeah, nobody's ever explained any of that.
So those
to
red
us.
flags and that's marking for underground where things would run. Red, I forget what red is. Red is usually not like electric or anything. So whenever you call 811, say you're doing something at your house, you call 811, they'll come out and they'll mark everything underground. Now, what you were right by there is where the power runs underground there. That's where it ties in. I think it probably, based on the description, what we do when they're routing new fiber and fibers for internet.
What if I said I don't want those in my yard?
Those ones,
I live there, and I don't want them.
if they mark it right there, that's.
Well, no, I'm talking about the red wires that are coming out.
Yeah, those are in the public right of way.
Right away.
Yeah.
So they can do that to any of your yards.
They do, in fact, they all have, anybody who has a house has utilities in the right of way.
Not the utilities. I'm
No, that's
talking
what that
about
is.
the-
That's what that is. That's what they're
The
marking.
marking, I understand
You
the
likely probably
marking.
don't own the first 10 or 15 feet of your property. It's probably in the public right.
Yeah, the roadway itself is normally 24 feet wide, the right-of-way is 50 feet wide. And so normally the roadway sits in the middle of the right-of-way. All of the utilities, whether it's power, telephone.
I understand that. I just don't understand
They're all there,
the
and
wires that are
that's why they're located, that's why they're in the public right-of-way.
We're going to answer what that is exactly for you between this group. Like, I can't say it's our services as First Energy. We're going to go out there and answer that for you because you need that answer. Again, we didn't
Well, yeah,
have
I don't
time
own
to-
that property.
No, we're going to tell you what it
Pay
is.
taxes.
I just have to pay taxes.
Yeah, we're going to tell you.
I thought Peters was better than this.
Anthony Rebish, 121 Druid as well. It's my wife, Erin. I'm just curious, who is going to come out and fix all the issues with the yard? I mean, it wasn't like that before. Who did the last of the work? I mean, who did the digging? I'm confused. 121 Druid.
Across the street where this transformer is?
Yes, directly across the street. I'm directly across. Yes.
Catty corner across.
Straight across. Those wires run right through my property line, straight over to Simmons. So in the front, I have the electrical box between me and Mr. and Mrs. Brown. It's shared in our property. That's where the exposed wires are. I'm curious who's coming out to fix all that that's left open and unattended.
I'll give you.
Because we have young
real
kids that
quick
play
answer.
there.
If it was work, so if they required electricity for us and West Penn Power had to go and tie in their electricity, if it was our work that damaged the yard, we'll come out and fix it. If it's work that was related to what they did, your scope of work, Diamond, Verizon will come out and fix it.
So who do I call?
You're telling us right now.
Yeah,
Well, we're gonna find
You're
out
gonna say- okay.
what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the other question was, or an issue, I noticed that you put that matting down to grow the grass, whatever. Why didn't you do that for our side, for mine, or Bill's, or Mr. Brown's? Like, Is the project over?
No.
It's not, okay.
Because they have to come back in the spring and do restoration. In fact, we were out there today, and that was one of the comments. And when the township works inside the right of way, we have the same problem in the wintertime. You can't establish grass this time of year, so they need to come back in the spring.
But we don't know that, Paul. Nobody's knocked on our door and said, this is
They'll be
going
back in the
up,
spring
this is
to
happening,
restore
your
your
yard's getting dug up.
Yeah, nobody ever told us
listen, you
any
know
of
now,
this
so.
about this project.
Well, that's
We
great.
know,
but-
they're gonna go
and
check it
unless
out,
I
we're gonna
would've
check
brought
it out.
stuff up, we
Whatever it
wouldn't be
is, it's
discussing
gonna get
it.
done.
I
And-
understand that.
Yeah.
But as far as the project being started, I had to go out and say, guys, what the hell's going on around here?
And they had to get water.
And they didn't know. They strong-armed my son for water because they didn't have water. I'm not sure which one of you needed the water. We're not that neighbor. Oh, you can't have water, but
Then the
he's 20 years
school
old and he's like, I didn't know what to do, Dad. Like, the guy was in the garage
And hit our car.
and then
All
one
right,
of the
come on.
spools of
One
wire.
person's talking. Let's
That's
keep
fine.
the
One of
audience
huge
comments
spools of
down.
wire rolled down our driveway and hit the back of his car, and there is damage. We didn't make an issue of it, just thought someone would take care of it eventually. I mean, the guys were there day after day after day. They had to move their trucks to let me in and out, my wife, my son. Like, I mean, there weren't issues with that, but it was just the whole idea of it going on day after day, and we had no idea this project was starting at all. Because the guy, he said, oh, we were supposed to notify you. Well, no one ever got notified.
I understand. Look at it from our perspective, we filed for a building permit, we received a building permit. That's our green light to proceed with construction. We start construction and we complete construction. The utilities that provide service to the site are permitted to work within the right-of-way without anyone's permission. So if the fiber company had to come and dig up or install some fiber that went to the site, as long as it's within the right-of-way, public right-of-way, they can do so. And in my experience, they're not great at restoring.
But the thing that I will agree with the residents, it's a failure on the part of the township, and as far as I'm concerned, a failure on the part of Verizon that notifications were not given ahead of time. And so for that, I will apologize, and I hope that we learn from our experience and this doesn't happen again. I realize that's no consolation to you, but you're absolutely correct. There's no reason why this work, when we knew that it was going to occur, that you weren't notified. And like I said, I think that's in part on us. I think it's in part on Verizon as well.
Paul, apologies are nice, but those are words. Where's the action? Where's the remedial action? Where's the responsible individual at here?
And what time are they going to be there tomorrow? Because we want to be there when they come up and look at it.
Everything that you spoke about is what I've asked you guys in the last 4 meetings. If you cannot see by now that we have to design a process, because there's more to this coming, not less. We need one point person that has power over zoning, that has power over all aspects of this, so these people can work with them. And they don't drive 8 or 9 hours and get mixed messages. Will somebody on this council, Mr. Lewis, you've been around a long time, you've dealt with utilities, will somebody make a motion properly that this township sets up a process with one person, point, and give them the authority to deal with all utilities moving forward? I want my township manager cracking nuclear codes. I don't need him walking around the yards. I don't need him dealing with every single issue that comes up. He should be doing the important stuff, not micromanaging every single aspect. Let's have a process. Somebody make a motion and set up a process that works for the residents and these people that want to provide service to this community that needs service. And we can get it done properly if we work together.
John, the preemption from the state level, it doesn't preclude us from requiring the utilities to notify residents, does it?
No, I was just thinking that's probably it in terms of what we can do, that they have to go out there before they begin or send letters out. That would be probably the closest thing we would have if we wanted to make an ordinance or something along those lines. I think, as the manager said, we do that. If we know Columbia Gas or somebody's going to be working there, we try to reach out. But I think normally that's because there's road interruptions or we work like that.
But there's no excuse from the township standpoint.
No, but
we should do that, and I would think that, although I think the utility company or the cellular company should make those notifications, we should be making those notifications as well, because people do need to understand where they can contact us.
Well, that's true.
And the thing that I would disagree with Mr. Brown is I handle issues every day to try to help residents with concerns they have. I don't think it's inappropriate for me to be doing that. That's my job.
But we have two assistant township managers underneath you.
I do agree with him.
They have assigned responsibilities, and are we
But they
delegating?
wouldn't be handling a building permit. That's the problem.
It comes out of the planning department.
It comes out of the planning department.
Process. Somebody make a motion and set up a process.
I was just about to say, I don't think we can make a motion right this second. I think what we should do, if council agrees with me, is to task the administration here with developing some type of process going forward so that this doesn't happen again.
I would agree.
And this is one of those rare scenarios where we're preempted. Normally, you would see this, and we would, advertise a public hearing, as Verizon indicated would typically happen. This is just a co-location situation. It's odd. Most other situations, that process absolutely exists already. So I agree. I think we can do that if, in any scenario, if there's going to be a utility company working in such a scope that...
And like I said at the very beginning, it's not even necessarily about trying to mandate what they do with their tower. It's about trying to work with them as a partner in this whole process.
And in that spirit of cooperation, can we get from you guys a time tomorrow that we can meet with you and kind of pick your brain, and you can see what what we're dealing with too? Because I'd love to be there when you're standing there.
1, 2, 3, Drew. She makes
I'll make coffee, mimosas, whatever you want. I'll be very nice. We'll have fun. But and I had the big question I have is why this tower, not the one across the. You'll see when you stand up there.
We were there, yeah. We were there.
Yeah. So I'm curious about
Honestly, I
that.
can't. I don't know.
Yeah. So that could be something we can brainstorm about. But if you can give us a time, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah.
30?
8:30? 8:30 works?
I won't be there, but I'll give you my card.
Okay.
I'm here. It
No
means I'm driving 3 hours
worries.
away.
We got it, yeah, so 8:30.
You don't get a
tomorrow morning.
croissant.
That'd be wonderful.
All right, for the sake of making this official, I'm going to move that we direct the manager to work with his staff to develop a procedure going forward to work with energy companies on any tower-related installations or upkeep or whatnot going forward.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Is there anyone in? Thank you for coming in. Have a safe trip home tomorrow.
They don't want to stick around for the Aquatic Center?
No, I did want to address everyone that came. You guys did not have to be here. Really appreciate it, and looking forward, want to build that relationship and get things done. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
We all do. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We will now move on to unfinished business, of which there is none. So we will move on to new business. The first item under new business is a consent agenda. Tonight's council meeting includes a consent agenda. We need the audience to quiet down so that we can keep going.
Folks, if you could take the discussion out of the
Discussion
hallway.
outside.
Thank you.
Tonight's council meeting includes a consent agenda containing 7 items. These 7 items can be approved in one action rather than filing motions on each item separately. The purpose of the consent agenda is to move routine items along quickly so the council has more time for issues that are important or that may require discussion. Items on this evening's consent agenda include 1. Resolution changing authorized signers on bank accounts held at Washington Financial. 2. Resolution changing authorized signers on bank accounts at CFS Bank. 3. Acceptance of the 2022 Survey of Financial Condition. 4. Authorize the appropriate township officials to sign the annual Equitable Sharing Agreement and Certification Report. 5. Exoneration of Ryan Jarosky and Jordan Tax Service from their obligation to collect 2022 Peters Township property tax. 6. Special permit for St. Benedict's Church authorizing trail banners and off-premises temporary signs for their fish fry. 7. Special permit for St. David's Church to operate the Peters Township Farmers Market from May through September on Wednesdays from 3 to 7 p.m.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there any member of council who wants any of these items taken off of the consent agenda?
No.
Hearing none. Dr. Porosco, you got a motion?
Because he has to say that. So
Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item, renewal of various insurance coverages, including automobile, fire, and liability for 2023.
So one of the things that Peters Township does that's a little different than other municipalities, we actually every 3 years go out and competitively bid insurance. It's been a number of years now that Ms. Murphy has helped us with that process. And so the way the process is set up is that brokers indicate an interest in offering quotes, and then they're assigned insurance companies to work with to provide those quotes. One of the things that happened this year was that our premiums were so low in the current year, it was difficult for people to compete with the current carrier. And so therefore, there were a number of agencies that could not get quotes. In fact, in the docket, there's a quote there from one of the brokers at Ensco Long about their difficulty in being able to get quotes. So what you have is our expiring insurances through the Campbell Insurance Agency with Zurich. The two quotes that we did get, the lowest one is a renewal under Zurich. The premium goes from $131,629 to $162,986. Ms. Murphy's here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Welcome.
First, I'd like to thank Ryan because he had to give me about 8 million pages of information to get this done. So I know he doesn't mind because insurance is his favorite thing to do. So anyway, we went out to the market, like Paul said. We got competitive programs. And the bottom line is, number one, Campbell's doing a really good job. Number two, because I think of the diligence of the township to do this every 3 years and to keep competitive, let the insurance markets know they're going to go out to bid every 3 years. People come in, they want to bid. So we went to quite a few markets. Campbell went to a lot of markets, and none of them were able to compete. Zurich, the incumbent, did provide a quote. The other agents are listed there, First National Bank. They requested more time, but we did not get a quote from them. McMiniman didn't present a quote citing pricing. Ensco Long, same thing. Banner couldn't compete with current pricing, and Ovid provided a quote, but it was very uncompetitive. I just wanted to review one quick thing because I know you're running behind today. You guys have just signed up, I guess, to get this year another property appraisal?
Yes,
It's gonna be in
yes,
23?
yes.
So really, just so in case anybody wanted to know this, your expiring property values were about 52.8 million, and they were increased to 66.8. Now, when you have this appraisal done, there may be another increase coming because of the increased cost of construction due to inflation in the marketplace, okay? So the 66.48 million, has been a process of your 2015 appraisal increased every year by 3 to 5%, depending on what the insurance company did, to keep up with inflation. So all I'm saying is because we've had this weird economic year, this may be the year that it gets ticked up a little bit more, but it's still not going to make any kind of, maybe a couple $1,000s difference in your premiums. But I just wanted to tell you that appraisal is going to make a difference because they're going to go back and look at these properties now with a new light in 2023, okay? I don't expect it to be anything astronomical though. And we did increase the premium this year, the values, like I said, from 52 to 66. I think the Ovid quote took them all the way up to 72 point some million, which I'm not sure where they came up with that number. I wouldn't even expect the appraisal to come up that high. So the premiums are, if that's what's up there, hold on one second. And I did make one little mistake, I'm sorry. I didn't include the crime premium. So your actual expiring premium is $134,978, and the renewal premium is $162,969, or $986, I'm sorry. And the only other quote we received was $322,653. Okay, so my guess is a lot of those other agents that were trying to quote it, the companies were coming back with numbers like that, and they saw the expiring premium and said, we're not even going to bother. Okay, that's usually what happens.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How do we solicit these people?
That we put an ad in the paper. So anybody that wants to participate is welcome to participate.
And we reach
My
out to...
recollection was the last time we bid this, we had a very competitive bid from Gleason Group or Gleason Insurance, and it was pretty close to Campbell, and then we went with Campbell because there was some extra umbrella.
That's the way the umbrella.
And I was just wondering why he didn't bid or we didn't reach out to him.
Well,
and the only reason I remember that is that he's a fraternity brother of mine from WJ.
Yeah, I think that
His father was the Republican state sheriff.
anytime, like Paul or Ryan would get a request from an agent, even if they didn't see the ad in the paper, although they're pretty good about finding ads in the paper, they would call me and ask me to put them on the list, but I never got anything.
I don't care. I just wanted to
And that
just
could
say
be
I did.
because of their past experience too with, the pricing and everything. The two things that I was worried about was the dam exposure. That's still covered, the downstream dam exposure. The dam itself has never been covered, but the downstream exposure, should it break loose, is covered. The engineer is also covered under the general liability and public officials. That's been ongoing, and the exposure for the drone is covered. Okay, so we've pretty much covered everything that we need to cover. And I looked at all the, I looked at the programs. And we switched from, I think it was Argonaut to Zurich somewhere in the last 3-year cycle.
Yes.
So they match coverages and pricing. And so my recommendation would be obviously to stay with the Campbell Agency at the renewal premium, excuse me, $162,986. Does anybody have any other questions? No?
No, thank you very much.
Okay,
I'll make
thank
a
you.
motion that we renew the insurance coverage with Zurich Insurance through Campbell Insurance Agency.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next is action on bids received for the Peters Township Aquatic Center.
The construction budget for the Rolling Hills Aquatic Center was $10,800,000. On December 15th of last year, we opened bids, and there's a summary of the bids that were received. As you can see, the low bid is $17 million plus. This is well in excess of the project budget, and for that reason, it's my recommendation that Peters Township reject all bids.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item, approval for recording purposes of the ward consolidation plan as shown on drawings prepared by Hampton Technical Associates dated December 13, 2022 for Robert D. and Sharon J. Ward.
This is a simple subdivision. The wards own two adjoining properties at 108 and 110 Sycamore. They're simply removing the property line.
I'll make a motion that we approve for recording purposes the ward consolidation plan as shown on drawings prepared by Hampton Technical Associates dated December 13th, 2022 for Robert D. and Sharon J. Ward.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next, approval for recording purposes of the Taylor-Glikes Subdivision as shown on drawings prepared by PVE dated December 22nd, 2022 for Theodore Taylor III.
So Darren and Lisa Gliss own a 4-acre parcel at 277 Thomas Road. They are interested and have under agreement to acquire a lot off of Mr. Taylor. That red area shows that lot, which will be incorporated into the property on the left.
I'll make a motion that we approve for recording purposes the Taylor-Glikes Subdivision as shown on drawings prepared by PVE dated December 22nd, 2022 for Theodore Taylor III, subject to the conditions recommended by the Peters Township Planning Commission.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Sorry we made you hang around that long for that, Mr. Taylor. Next, resolution accepting streets, easements, and other stipulated public improvements in the Ironwood Estate Plan of Lots.
So the Ironwood Estates Plan of Lots has been completed for quite some time, and we finally have reached the point where we have in hand everything we need to accept this. One of the things that's occurred, and you see this in the list of outstanding liens, is that Benjamin Marcus Homes has a number of properties that have been liened for failure to pay taxes. One of those properties happens to be the right-of-way in which the roads in this plan are located. And so what I'm going to suggest to council is, because I thought this would get resolved before tonight, is that, in fact, you table action on this until such time as those taxes are paid.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
I'm recusing myself.
601, Mr. Lauer. Next is appointment to the Peters Township Parks and Recreation Board.
It's a 7-member board. There's 1 vacancy on the board. Council has interviewed 3 individuals. The term is for 3 years.
I would nominate Martin Kumba.
Second.
Nomination and second. Any discussion?
And that would be for a 3-year term?
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Is this the one we're going to increase the board? I'm going to make a motion that we increase. Oh, it's the library.
Library Board.
7-0, Mr. Lauer.
Yes.
Next is appointment to the Peters Township Library Board.
So the library board currently consists of 7 members. There's 1 vacancy on the board to get you back to 7. The Township Code does provide for the ability to increase the membership on that board to 9 members. I've been in touch with the chairman as well as the library director, and they think that would be a positive move to actually.
Based on the quality of the candidates that we've interviewed for those positions, I'm going to make a motion that we increase the library board from 7 to 9 members, which I think is the maximum at this point in time.
I'll second that, but with the caveat that every appointment from here forward is limited to 2 terms.
I'll second that.
But I think you can't do that unless we amend the township code to do that. So if you want to have a term limit, you can do this one of 2 ways. You just don't appoint them when they come up, or we need to amend the code that deals with membership on that particular board.
Because I know you had said that the library board had requested.
The library board, I have a set of bylaws that they have submitted for council to take action on. One of the things contained in there is that they can't set the term for the board. You can, and if you want to do that, we need to prepare an ordinance.
And how long does that take?
That we can have it at the next meeting.
All right, why don't we table these till then?
We can.
Or you want?
You can appoint them.
can still appoint them.
You're right. Forget it. Just go ahead. We have a motion and a second to expand the library board from 7 to 9. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer.
Do you need Mr. Kozer to make a motion to create an ordinance?
No, I can draft an ordinance.
Okay, now we need to appoint these 3 new members.
I'll make a motion to appoint 3 people listed here: Larry Clark, Rachel Gogos, and Stephen Shepard to the library board.
Each for how long? 3-year term?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next is payroll and bills.
Mr. Chairman, I've reviewed payroll and bills and find everything to be in acceptable order.
I'll second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0. Correspondence, nothing, Mr. Lauer?
Nope.
Anybody want to discuss any of the various board minutes? Okay, moving on to miscellaneous tentative council calendar. We have a joint workshop with the Township School Board on March 6th.
That date works for the school board, so.
And that will be
It'll be here.
Okay. And we have a joint workshop with the Planning Commission on February the 20th, 7 p.m.?
Yes.
That'll be here as well?
Yes.
Okay. And we have the Township tour schedule. I'm going to be on vacation that week. So.
Well, I just put a date in so we can start to talk about when to do it.
So,
To me, that seems like a little late.
Oh, we did it in August last year.
Yeah, but the reason why it's June 19th is that I thought everyone preferred to do this in the evening. You're getting close to the longest day of the year.
Well, that makes sense, but, I mean, we used to go out earlier for the road tour because
that was
we wanted to see the roads, but if you don't think we need to do that, then I'm okay with that. It doesn't have to be that date, but if Frank wants to be there, I don't have a problem if we move it up or back a little bit to accommodate him.
You want to go the next the next Monday after that, we,
That would be a council, but that would be a regular meeting.
no,
wouldn't it?
Where are these dates? They're not in
on
miscellaneous?
miscellaneous, on the agenda
They're
there.
on the back page of the.
The back
regular
page of the agenda. I'm in miscellaneous on the docket.
I mean,
It's a single page.
Oh, here they are.
And it
Yeah,
says
'cause the 26th would be,
board interview at the top.
26th would be a regular meeting, right?
Okay.
School board, the 6th, March.
Yeah, 26th is a regular meeting.
That's all right.
How about the 27th or any day that week?
That works, that'll work for me.
Or, do you want to do it on the 27th?
27th.
Yeah, it's a Tuesday.
Okay, we're going to tentatively set it for the 27th.
Or 27th of June?
6:30, same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, next, zoning hearing board reports.
I don't think there's anything.
I don't think there was anything on it.
Yeah.
All right. Garbage collection, municipal liens.
It's just providing the information about the liens that are outstanding.
Anything anybody wants to see on the next agenda?
I'd like to see if it's available, the issue about that bridge down there, you know, on Courtney's property, because I know Paul told me that we have to have somebody look at it. I don't know when we're going to have that done.
Well, what we have, and what Mr. Tovet's working on this, what we're doing is contacting Courtney's and directing them to have a engineer provide us.
Because I mean, that's a safety issue, but
That's why I think we need to look at it. It's been 10 years.
Thank you. That's all I had.
I have a question. What about the follow-up from the gentleman who came in, talking about those two intersections, the one Valley Brook and like 19 and then one on 19? About what we were going to do with the signage for that turn that's really dangerous?
Well, what we have agreed is that there are going to be dash lines that directs that turn, and we're going to find out whether it's permissible to put up signage. Those dash lines aren't going to get painted until the winter's done.
Right, okay.
And then, I don't know, do you remember, Mark, about the signage on coming on to Route 19? Did Mudvee say that we were going to try to locate it back closer to the intersection?
Oh, that's for Old Oak.
Old Oak, yeah.
Yes, that was his thought.
Yes, and so that
Either
can
way,
happen now.
They'll have to, there's PennDOT permits for each of those intersections, so he's got to submit a revision to PennDOT, and they will bless it before we do anything.
Okay.
So I think he's in that process right now.
And I may have missed this topic 2 weeks ago, but that's why I was checking. Thank you.
Hey, Paul, is it possible for us to maintain a list? Like, we interview all these people and then we select certain people to be on these boards. And, sometimes you come across someone that, like, you really want to put on, but, just you don't have the room. Is there a way that we could actually have a formal list of, like, we don't want to have to re-interview
I think he keeps one.
And we do that in essence, because there is a lot of, there are a number of people that weren't interviewed, and we'll hold all those people on that list, and the next time around, we'll contact them to make sure they still have interest, and then we add to the list by advertising.
Because the individual that we interviewed this evening, we thought would be something that would go on some kind of list like that, if possible. Okay?
Yep.
We also talked after the interviews, Paul, about meeting quarterly is with the departments come and give us reports. So
You mean the boards?
The boards, yes. So can we make sure that we start doing that again?
Are you saying that you want to meet with a different board, or you want to meet with the Park and Rec board quarterly?
Park and Rec first.
Park and Rec should start up their quarterly reviews, their quarterly updates that kind of ended when the pandemic started.
Okay.
Yeah. Remember they would come in and tell us what they did.
I know. What I was asking is, are you asking each quarter to have a different board here? No. Or are you asking to have the Park and Rec board here?
Yeah, no, I want the Construction Appeals Board here.
No.
Yes. The first time they meet, we'll have them here.
Right, exactly. Next agenda, can we have an update on where Kyle's at on the Longview Drive cul-de-sac issue?
Oh, no, we can do that right now. Kyle, come to the podium.
That's funny.
Signed, sealed, delivered, and recorded.
You're the man, Kyle.
Yes.
Good to go. Boldly doing something that no other man was able to do before.
How much did it cost?
Yeah, how much did it cost us?
8 million.
No, actually.
Oh, really?
He provided this without compensation. Now, having said that, he's going to have improvement on his property because that cul-de-sac will reach up onto his driveway, and we need to do some repair in his driveway. But he was very cooperative. I mean, it took a while to get there, but
that's good.
Kyle, a sweet talker.
So when are we figuring that we're going to do Longview this year then?
Oh, it's going to occur. In fact, probably in March, the water company will be in there replacing their water line, and then we'll be following right after them.
Perfect.
I wrote the 27th.
Oh, it's going to be a
It's great
going to be a
news. It's not
difficult
bundle
construction,
on the
though.
street, but it's even greater news for the people that have to back down that street.
So the garbage truck will be able to turn around now, the school bus will be able to turn around?
Yeah, and the plow will be able to turn around.
Oh, a couple of items. First off, I had asked a couple months ago about, or maybe last month, about a report on the traffic accidents with deer, how many deer were killed during the archery program.
Let me follow up with the chief.
Yeah, and I'm
we
also
have a discussion about that.
Yeah, and I'm also curious too how that call is going to go with our captain being promoted. Like, I'm wondering if he's still going to be the person that is going to be out shooting
You know what?
deer.
I hadn't thought about that, but let me find out.
Also, Frobe Road, toward the top where the existing guardrail ends, I believe I had asked about looking into extending that guardrail, being that the trees are out now. I think it poses a hazard, especially in.
But I think the problem's going to be.
And I don't care about the house being built there.
Oh, okay.
I'm concerned about cars going off the road and somebody getting killed. You know, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, somebody, if they buy the house there, they're going to they can have a guardrail in their front yard. It's,
Or those houses are going to face Barovia, right?
Yes, the driveways are coming out.
Yeah.
You're right, I mean.
yeah, I'm a
it's
little more
hazardous-
concerned about our existing residents than potential future residents.
Because before, if you hit a patch of ice there, you just hit a tree. Now you're just going to keep.
Yeah, you're going to keep
You're
going.
going to keep going until you end up down either in the pond or in the electric plant, one of the two. The substation.
That's all right.
Anybody else have anything for the good of the order?
I think that's enough.
We are adjourned. We have an executive session?
Yes, we do.